Okay. Okay. Then how we do that is I'm sharing the screen, and then you see um, the slides that I'm going through with you. So here we are. And in case you don't know how Zoom works, if you can go on gallery view, if you go on gallery view, and then there is a little arrow in the right hand side where you can extend your viewer, so you have all people on your screen. Actually try that here, but it doesn't work. So this gallery view is this icon with lots of windows. And when you drag that open, you see them all, and this slide. Yeah. Okay. So talking about copyrights quickly. So everything that you basically see here, or what you hear, is copyrighted by Family Constellation Virtual, and also to prevent any issues with privacy of the group members, it is very important that we keep it between us. So none of the materials can be used in any other way than which is permitted here. That means no recordings or screenshots can be made and distributed other than you want to screenshot a certain, slide. There are some slides that you might want to keep instead of writing it down. However, would like to invite you to have a notebook and write in the things that it's important for you, because not everything is equally important for you, and make your own training manual with your notebook. And when you visit the video recordings, you can add the things that you have missed and that you find of more important. So, right. So here we come. I want to talk to you now about what to expect from the training module 1. The training module 1 is today, next week, and the week after. And I want to talk to you also what not to expect from the training module 1. So first of all, I would like to introduce to you the concept that the Family Constellation Virtual Training is first and foremost for personal growth, because you can only give what you have. Yeah. This is not like becoming a math teacher, where you just need to learn some forms or some equations, and then you can teach it to somebody else. What you are giving is what you have in your heart, the growth that you have, the person you have become is what you are giving, and when you're facilitating family constellation. So as vaster your consciousness is, as vaster your inner space is, yeah, as more you can help others. And how you create this inner space in letting go of everything that is encumbering you and your family system. So first and foremost, we all have to have a clear path ourselves, because before we can provide this help to others, right? So the training is first and foremost for personal growth. And secondly, then to provide service to others. And of course, that goes hand in hand. That's for sure. So it's not like you have to grow personally to a state then, and from there on you can, facilitate it. It's intertwining. So you grow with your skills and with the work that you do. It is also important after module 1, because it's very theoretical, not to be, very excited about you have learned and then try to apply that already, because this is not the complete picture. Module 1, 2, and 3 belong together. And module 2 and 3 are more the practical aspects about how to apply the wisdom of Bert Hellinger that he calls the orders of love that I convey in module 1. So wait until module 3 is finalized to have the full picture, and start then to talk about it and start with friends and family to probably do some trials. Um, I would like you to listen and feel to the teaching content. It should go to your heart, not to your mind. Hmm? The good thing is you get the recordings, and whatever the mind is eager to understand can be understood when you revisit the module. Yeah. So when you are here, when we're in this space together, this is precious time. And this is why it is live and face to face. So we are connecting with each other and taking everything in on a heart level rather than on a mind level. However, of course, if you have questions, take notes, and then we will have Q&A sessions after the break and before we leave the day. So we will have a short break of 10 minutes in each part, so we can stretch our legs and take a sip of water and um, need to do what we need to do even in this short break, okay? So as I said, I would recommend you have a notebook just for the purpose of the training. So a lovely notebook that is only with this, that you write only in this training content, and that you make your own with some colorful doodlings if you're arty, which is very good to remember things. We have the video recordings, so I explained that to you. You can watch them anytime. And then we have the list of books that you can read as well, and it is all complementary to this training. So here we go. We are starting with training module 1. It is the orders of love, how Bert Hellinger has named it. Of course, he did it in German, and in German it is called Die Ordnungen der Liebe. I don't know whether anyone from you is familiar with German language by chance? No? Okay. Yes, you are, Abby?
Ein bisschen.
Ein bisschen. That's great. So the Orders of Love is a literal translation from Ordnungen der Liebe. You can also find a book that is translated in English as Love's Hidden Symmetries. It is the same as Orders of Love. Hmm? So in part 1, which would be today, we learn the first order of love. There are 3 orders of love. We learn in part 1 the first order of love, which is belonging, destiny, conscience, and guilt. That's today. Tomorrow, not tomorrow, the next week, we are learning about the second, in part 2, the second order of love. That is who comes first. And then in part 3, which is in 3 weeks, or the third meeting that we have together, we learn about the third order of love, which is balancing of giving and taking. So today, belonging, destiny, conscience, and guilt. What is that? Why do we need to learn about it? And what does it have to do with family systems and family constellation? So we are looking at the family system. What is a system? We are looking at belonging. Who belongs to the family system? We are looking at the conscience, at this different conscience that are described by Bert Hellinger, that is important for the work, which is the personal, the collective, and the spiritual conscience. We are looking at destiny. We are looking at common destiny, and we try to answer this very interesting questions. Do we have free choice? And then we are looking at guilt, fear, and the death in family systems, which is a very important part of facilitating family constellation. Okay, let's start with family systems. What is a system? We are becoming, this training is about, is named as a systemic and energy code, which is the broader version, and facilitating family constellation is a part of it. Because when you know how to understand a system, then you know not only family systems, but also organizations. So you would constellate not only a family, you can constellate a working environment. You can constellate organizations like governments. I had clients in Germany, they were government employees. They, they wanted to constellate things like governments are concerned. Schools, prisons, they all, directors of a prison, they want to constellate their organization. So this is a vast field. And this is why we learn about systems, because everything that we learn in family about family systems and family constellation training, you can also apply on organizations because they are systems too. Even a religious group, for example. So the system is an organized field. That's what, if you would have a field only, there would be only chaos. So it would go like everywhere, and it's just a field of things, yeah. But when it becomes a system is when it becomes organized. So something or somebody is organizing a field, so it becomes a system. A system is something that is organized so it can be reproduced and it can be understood, because chaos cannot be understood, right? There is no way of understanding chaos, why something is going from A to B. But if it's organized, then we can study it, understand it, and apply it. And this is how systems are created. Yeah, they are organized fields. A family system is an organized field of family members. That is a family system. So we need to know who belongs to a system, to the family system, to know with whom we are working in a family constellation. Because it would make no sense to work with people in a family constellation that do not belong to the family system, because it would have no effect. Yeah. So first step is to understand who belongs to a family system. Family systems are what we are constellating, and we are not constellating anybody outside of a family system, with very rare exemptions. Like every rule has exemptions, obviously, so very rare, but we are not concerned about the exemptions here too much. We are concerned about the rule. So we are looking in great detail who belongs to a family system, so we know with whom we're going to work in a family constellation. Belonging. First of all, to a family system belong family members that are related through bloodline. Have you heard about the term epigenetic inheritance? Yeah? Some? So it is, we will talk about that later on in greater depth. I just want to point that out here. When we said bloodlines, we are thinking of genes, like, genetic lines in father and mother ancestors, and then that's correct. But when we are talking about entanglements and how we are entangled with a forefather, with an ancestor, this is because not of the genes, but of the epigenetic inheritance. So I just throw that in here. We will go in greater depth in that in module 2. So first rule is family members who are related through bloodline belong to the family system, but not everyone, because this is a vast field otherwise, and would be chaotic, not organized anymore. So we will look in a little animation I done for you who would be blood related and who would count to a family system due to Bert Hellinger's Orders of Love. Then the next group of people who belong to a family system, which we called are the persons who are bound together by destiny. So they are not related by blood or through genes or epigenetic inheritance. They are related through destiny or karma. And we look into that in greater depth. We have there very typical partners. Partners are obviously not blood related, but they belong to a family system through destiny, because it is not by coincidence why you have a partner. It might seem so sometimes, but it's not. It is all kind of orchestrated by the family system, as we will see later. Anybody has adopted a child or knows somebody who has adopted a child or was an adopted child? Yes, Yoda?
I have my younger brother is adopted.
Very good. So that would be very interesting to see this and when we do a constellation. So adopting parents are bound to a family system by destiny as well, right? They are not blood related and they are normally not showing up in constellations, but in certain situations and circumstances, they have a common destiny with the family system and then they belong to it. Then we have other not blood related persons that belong to a family system, and we call them victim and or perpetrator. So there's a strong dynamic of a victim or perpetrator that draws them through action into the family system. So this dynamic means that either the victim or the perpetrator is from the family system we are looking at, and then the counterpart, the perpetrator or the victim, belongs to this family system through action, through this act of violence, which it was. Then also not blood related, but belonging to the family system are the advantaged and disadvantaged giver or receiver. This is kind of the milder form of victim and perpetrator, because when we say victim and perpetrator, we most often talk about death. Yeah, somebody who caused the death of somebody else most of the time, or a severe trauma, severe disease that makes the victim almost not be able to live. Yeah. Now, the milder version of it is an advantage or disadvantage giver, but also here to the family system does not belong anybody who was malicious towards you. It is a severe disadvantage. For example, a war situation. We had in Germany lots of constellations where the disadvantage giver was Jewish inheritance, and their parents have been robbed by the Third Reich, by the Nazis, of their properties, yeah, and their business and their land and everything. And this kind of advantage and disadvantage we are talking about is severe disadvantage that takes away everything somebody owns, right? Or the whole business, or somebody's betraying the other and they lose everything, right? So it's always when we're looking family constellations, we are not looking at things that are uncomfortable or not nice. It is always the fear of not being able to live behind it that causes an entanglement, the dynamic in a family system. Then we are having the lost children because they are often the reason why there is a symptom that somebody comes with to a family constellation, because children who belong to a family system are not accounted for. And we call them the lost children, just as a term that we know what we're talking about. The lost children are the children that are not accounted for openly in a family. And then we have the forgotten or the dismissed. That doesn't need to be children. That could be anybody, any individual from the family system who had, well, the black sheep, for example, or when we're talking ancient generations, um, there were easily people dismissed from the family system because they did something, they had whatever sexual preferences that were not agreed with, or certain reasons why they have been expelled from the family, and then nobody talks about them and they are forgotten for later generations, right? There's no pictures and there's no talks about them and they are not existing, but they show up in a family constellation. to our amazement. And this is what brings the healing movement then to this family system. And then the dead, in general term, they all belong to the family system. So when we talk about a family system, we are always looking at people who has a past and left their bodies, because energetically we are looking at the souls of these individuals. They are still there and still part of the family system. So just because somebody died, that means nothing in a family system, in a family constellation, right? They still belong to the family system. So now we look in this in more depth. So first of all, we look at the blood-related family members and who belongs and who do not belong. So first of all, Bert Hellinger has stated that we only look at 7 generations in a family constellation. And the generation starts with the one who is constellating. Let's say the client. That's generation number 1. And then his or her parents are second generation. Their parents, saying the grandparents, are the third generation. And then the great grandparents are fourth generation, and fifth to 7 are the ancestors. These people belong to a family system, but not everybody who is blood related. We have a little animation later on, and then I show you what I mean with this. Then we have partners and former partners that belong by destiny through a family system in 2 generations only, maybe in 3, but not more. Right? So that means here's a client. The client says a woman has a partner, man in this case, and maybe a former partner because she is divorced. Yeah. So 2 partners are playing a role in her family system. And then she has parents, and her father was married before her mother. So there's another former partner that belongs to the family system. That would be the first wife of the father. Yeah. And then the grandparents maybe had both former partners, but they may don't belong to the family system. But definitely the great grandparents who had former partners, the former partners would not play a role in the family system anymore. Yeah. So this is part of the orders of love that we just need to know. So we are not concerned with persons who cannot play a role in a family constellation and leading us astray away from the dynamic. Siblings, all siblings belong to a family system. So again, we talk from generation 1, so the client, all siblings belong to the family system, even the ones that are half siblings, that have another mother or father. And also, here's the same rule, siblings and half siblings of the parents belong to the family system, but rarely the siblings of the grandparents. Sometimes they show up, but not very often. Victim and perpetrator, however, can appear in all 7 generations. And they often do. And we often come in the family constellation to a victim perpetrator situation in the 4th, 5th, 6th, or even 7th generation. Unsolved for so long. That's common. And the same is with advantage and disadvantage givers. They also appear up to 7 generations. And I would like to share some first hands-on experience with these teachings from Bert Hellinger. In one of my constellations, I had that. I had representatives for 7 generations standing in a constellation, and the 7th generation was clearly indicating that there was the 8th generation had nothing to do with it anymore. It stopped. The dynamic stops. It is like a expiry of the family system dynamic. It cannot go on forever. If it's not solved in 7 generations, then it's kind of that the morphic field is dismissing it again. And that's a rule. That's a rule. It does not mean that there's not this one case that is an exemption, right? Where you find you go back, I don't know, 100 generations, who knows? But the good thing is in the new family constellation, you don't need to know most of the times in which generations you are working. Yeah. So you don't need to count it in this way. So we are talking now, we have talked about belonging through blood, which is obviously the family members, and through destiny, which are most often the partners or the adoption cases, and belonging through action, with is a victim perpetrator or the advantage disadvantage giver and receiver situation. And we are looking now at this victim and perpetrator situation. For example, um, most often we have either a murder or an accident where one loses its life. This is either adult or children. The most common one you see in family constellation is abortion. That's the most common one. Aborted children are victims and perpetrators are the mothers. And this is might hard to swallow, and this is not a moral thing. It is just what shows up in a family constellation, and it needs to be acknowledged as such. So this is what just happens very often. So don't be shocked about that. That is the daily bread and butter of a family constellation facilitator. Yeah. Um, Very often the clients don't mention that because they're ashamed of it, which is the cause of a dynamic, by the way. So it will show up in a family constellation to their surprise often. The other one is murder, especially generations before, where nobody talks about and nobody knows about, or accidents. Somebody, I don't know, killed a pedestrian drunken in a car or something like that. These are all victim perpetrator situations. So when we talk about victim perpetrator, we are not talking about a legal situation or morals or anything like this. It is a simple cause and effect situation. Yeah. Somebody causes the death of somebody else. And that's all. That's all we need to know. We never justify anything in a family constellation. It is what it is, right? So it's a very humble work, right? Very humble. You cannot oppose your opinions on anybody. You just see what you see, and you work with the orders of love to relieve um, the clients that come to you or yourself from the burdens that it carries. Mm. It is, other than the mother and aborted child situation, often an entanglement that means that the people you're working with are not actually the perpetrator or victims, right? They are often just entangled with perpetrator victim situation, which is in former generations. Yeah. So other than trauma work, which you might, or some of you are familiar with, when you have a traumatized client, yeah, where you need to be very careful about the perpetrator, no, and not to re-traumatize. That has nothing to do with family constellation. The people that come to you, they don't have the trauma. They have an entanglement with somebody who was traumatized and died. Yeah. So you don't need to. There is no issue with the re-traumatizing. Hmm? Okay. So now, bound by destiny. So victim and perpetrator are, as you will see, and you might have seen in the family constellation you have taken part in, they are bound together by destiny. It is not a coincidence why these meet and become either victim or a perpetrator with the other. It is like the partner situation. There is destiny in has its hand in the game. And this is what you see in family constellation. You see the relief is there when victim and perpetrator are united. And that goes against so many morals and common social observations or belief systems that it is hard to swallow. And Bert Hellinger was criticized in the 1980s for that a lot. But it's just what you see, what heals. That's all we need to know. And because we have so many traumatized people who are entangled with traumatized people, because this unity is not seen and not supported. This is why family constellation has so amazing healing properties, because it provides that space where love can flow between these people who are bound by destiny, where society don't want that. Hmm. Guilt and shame creates an entanglement. That is something I want you just to have in the back of your head, because we will talk about that a lot during this course, and it doesn't need to make sense at the moment. I just want you to hear that. Yeah. When you have victim and perpetrator situation, there's always guilt and shame involved. Regardless how it looks, the perpetrator feels guilt and the victim feels shame. And that is creating the entanglement. The love will heal. As always, love will heal. And that's what we do in family constellation. We let the love flow. The love that was interrupted through this action, through this act of violence. Yeah, that makes the victim and the perpetrator. It's always an act of violence. But that does not mean that there is not love present. The love that bounds them by destiny, and this love needs to flow from one to each other. And that has a healing impact on the family system. Because they belong together. Somewhere in some realms that are not obvious to us, they have made like a soul pact that this will be the case. That is how they leave the earth. Advantage and disadvantage giver belong to family system under the same circumstances. It's just different examples. So most commonly was this an act also of violence, betrayal most often, that somebody loses all their belongings, the land, the business, maybe the good name, whatever is a source of making a living to somebody else because of an act that is not love. And so they become entangled. The love is interrupted again. They are bound by destiny, and the work of the family constellation facilitator is to see it when it's appropriate and allow them through the orders of love to let the love flow again. They are also bound by destiny. Somewhere in some realms where souls meet, they have met and decided that that's what's going to happen on Earth. Also, here is guilt and shame involved, because the one who took the advantage receiver, feels guilt, even if it's subconscious, and the one who is the disadvantaged receiver or has the disadvantage feels shame, feels the emotion of shame. Often disguised as rage or anger, right? But what lies underneath is what's interesting us, not what is shown. No? So this is then also what you learn when we talk about emotions and the frequency of emotions and gestures, and how to observe representatives in a family constellation to find out what is the underlying emotion there. Again, love will heal. We allow the love to flow that was already there and was interrupted by these emotions of guilt and shame. And also, like victim perpetrator, advantage givers and receivers, they belong together. They need to find to each other. So now, yeah, now we are looking at this family system and who belongs in a little visual that I put together, so you can memorize it better. So these are all the persons that are playing a role in a family system. We have mother's family, father's family. We have victim or advantage giver. We have a perpetrator or disadvantage giver. We have siblings, and we have former partners. So we are starting with you or your client. That is the first generation. Then we have the parents. These are two people, right? Can only be two, even if you have a step parent. The step parent does not belong to you as a parent, but maybe as a partner of your parent, right? Or a former partner of your parent, but it's not your parent. Your parent, you have only egg and sperm, you have only either or. Even if it's a sperm donor, while we're talking about that, because nowadays we have situations and family constellations that Bert Hellinger never faced. You know, we have transgender persons, we have sperm donors, we have um, mothers who carrying children for somebody else. That was not common in the 80s and 90s, right? So we have to see family constellations also from a new perspective. Yeah, so that's another challenge, which is lovely. So, however, there's always egg and sperm, and this is what we call the parents, not the ones who are raising the children. In the family system, blood related people are these who are giving their gene and their epigenetic heritage to one another and each other. Then the third generations are the grandparents. Again, the grandparents who were blood related, so who were sperms and eggs. So we have already there two female and two male, right? These are the grandparents, third generation. And then we have the great grandparents, the fourth generation, which makes, again, egg and sperm on each party. So we have 8 of those. And then we have the generations 5 to 7, which is we call the ancestors. Hmm? Because you rarely see, they must be dead, because you rarely see beyond great grandparents, right? And I made the math, by the way, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I came to the conclusion we have 240 ancestors. This is a lot of people, and a lot can go wrong. We will never run out of work. That's healing family constellations, right? And then, of course, also to the family system belongs the source. Some call it God or the divine or whatever name you give it. It's the source where all these people coming from. Adam and Eve, if you will. Yeah. The source or God does show up in a family system, constellation. I had that several times. Yeah. So they belong. Now, this is easy, but then we have the siblings. Now, the siblings belong first, second, maybe in the third generation. We talked about that before. They do not belong in the generation of your great grandparents or your ancestors. Imagine the siblings of all those people would be part of the family system. Do we still have an order here? Or more a chaotic field, right? So this is clever. The family system, the morphogenetic field is clever. It can only create an order up to so many people. So it excludes the others. Yeah, not to bother about them because they all create their own family system, hmm? Which can, of course, cross over, obviously. So then we have the partner and former partners, which are also only if they show up and play a role in the family system in the first 3 generations. And that's already another lot of people who can cause trouble. And then we have the perpetrators. They can show up in every generation, and that don't need to be a few. I just put in a few. That can be much more, you know, in this world of violence, not uncommon, and all these war situation and you name it. And then we have the um, victims or advantage giver or disadvantage receiver as well as a counterpart to this. And they also show up in all generations. So we are dealing with a lot of people in a family constellation. So imagine you would just as a side, just a little bit side note, the old family constellation or the first family constellation that we're telling developed or the movement of the souls, he started with constellating all these people. Like he started with the first generation, put everybody from the first generation there, and then the second generation, and he had groups that were that large that he could have representatives for them all, right? So he kind of, that's how he started. So he saw the dynamics by going through all of this. Yeah. But of course, this takes time and resources, and we don't often have groups like this. I mean, like 200 or 300 people. So the new family constellation is to know who belongs to the family system, to have this all this knowledge that you work with, but to go straight to the dynamic. Do not worry in which generation that is. You go straight there. So now we have our person, our client, or yourself, which is black, and he goes in a family constellation, not in one, but in the journey of family constellations through all these entanglements of all these generations, and hopefully comes back enlightened and free to live its life and bring freedom to his own children and grandchildren. That's what we want to help with in our own lives, for our own family systems, and for the ones who are seeking our help, right? Okay, now talk about the lost children. The lost children belong to the family system and they will show up a lot. This is common. So first of all, have you heard, let us just make a time check if we need a break. When did we start? We start 7:30, 8:30. Let's go through that before we have a break. So the lost twin. Anybody heard this term? The lost twin?
We
No?
actually, Robin and I had, so when we had a family constellation, we just that um, our daughter had a twin,
Yeah,
but she was, but she didn't like, I guess early in the pregnancy, it just didn't make it.
yeah, very good. So that's what we call a lost twin. Every 10th pregnancy is actually a twin pregnancy, and not every 10th pregnancy is like, you know, how can I say, giving birth to twins, right? A lot less. So in the first stage of the pregnancy, most of these twins are not making it. And they are very small, like embryos are small, and they are kind of disintegrating into the tissues either of the womb or which is later shows in the placenta or in the other surviving twin. And you often see that um, because somebody comes to you and has a bit of a lump, which is nothing concerned about, but it's a bit of a lump. And when they are for aesthetic reasons, let the lump remove, then they will find their tissues like little tiny little cells of nails and hair and skin, and this is the lost twin. And I had lots of family constellations with lost twins. It's a trauma for the surviving child. It's a trauma, and because you just imagine you are so close. You grow up in the first weeks or months of your life. You the heart is beat. You hear the heartbeat of your twin, and you grow up with it in the womb, and then you feel the warmth and the movements, and all of a sudden this is all dead, right? This is a trauma for the surviving twin, which is not conscious, obviously, and causes can causes problems in the life that then are revealed the situation in family constellation, if he or she is lucky enough to come to one, or the parents for no. So that happens often, and sometimes this lump is actually there. I had clients who I ask when I see a lost twin in the constellation, do you have a lump? And they say, yeah. How do you know? I have a lump here and it's there, and I don't know. It doesn't bother me, and and then they understand that they're twin. Hmm. So what I want to say is the lost twin belongs to the family system. Yeah. And it's a family member nobody knows about, not even the mother often, because the mother doesn't know. Yeah. And the only one who knows, the child cannot remember, as we all are in the theta and alpha state before we becoming 4, 5 years old, don't remember. Yeah. Consciously. Special needs children often, not so much now, but 20, 30 years ago, and certainly 100 years ago, have been often um, given away to institutions, and or even killed or abandoned. So they play a role in a family constellation. Uh, the child who was given away because of financial reasons, sometimes, also in former generations when they couldn't feed so many children as they had to give children away. Um, for whatever reasons, and they might died or might not died, but they've been given away and nobody talks about them, nobody knows about them. So they belong to the family system. Aborted children, definitely, right? They belong. They have a strong impact on the family through these emotions of guilt and shame. Miscarried children also belong to the family, and this is why it has nothing to do with morals and justice. um, it's just a simple fact that there was something alive and then it's dead, right? And it was part of the family, it was blood related, and still is part of the family system, but often nobody um, talks about it. But if you don't study the orders of love, you wouldn't know, right, that it plays a role in the life of the family system. Stillborn children, of course, belong to the family system, very obviously. Often it is so painful for the parents that they don't want to be remind of it, and they don't talk about it, but it will come up in a family system, in a family constellation. A child who died later on after birth is very traumatic to the family, and often a cause of encumbrances. So that was the lost children. And now we are looking at the dynamic bound together by destiny. So we have two types of destiny relationships. One that is bound together through a lifetime. And these are often older couples you see that are together for 50, 60 years, and you wonder what they have, why on earth. Um, but they are bound by destiny. They would not let each other go, even if they hate each other. Right? And this is for a good reason. It would have to do with their family systems. Yeah? Or they have a karmic relationship. So that's what you see in family systems, in family constellations. This can show up also in form of accidents. So they're also not coincidental. Yeah. Somebody runs somebody else over, that's not a coincidence. It cannot be anybody. It must be this person. This is the destiny relationship that we see in family constellations. Tragedies often, also not coincidental. We have disease, big topic, obviously. that disease are um, you know, binding people together if they carry a disease. Um, of course, it needs to be a life-threatening disease, not a flu. We are not talking about COVID here, although it does threat lives, but we are talking about something more obvious that you can relate to. And we have also bound a destiny relationship through somebody who cares for somebody else. For example, an adoptive parent who cares for a child that is not their own. That would be a destiny relationship. So the destiny relationship ends by fulfillment of the duty. And this is then often when a partner leaves, although he still loves the other partner, but it feels the need to leave and go their own way. This is most guaranteed that there was a destiny relationship and the destiny was fulfilled. Whatever it was, balanced something out, you know, cared for somebody through a disease or to hard times, whatnot, and then this is over and done. It can end by death, obviously. These other relationships you see where they won't let go of each other no matter what, and then one dies, and often the other one dies shortly after because they just don't want to live without them. The signs are for a destiny relationships. Um, Somebody leaves the partner, although love is felt, what I just said, but they don't want to stay. They just feel the need to go ahead. Or the opposite, they are not leaving the partner, although no love is felt. There is no love anymore, but they are not leaving. These are all signs for destiny relationships. And then we have the forgotten or dismissed. These are family members nobody talks about. And I tell you, these are the important family members. So sometimes, and when you are becoming an experienced facilitator, you can see and feel and hear the one your client is not talking about. It becomes more and more obvious, you know. These are the important people. People who are left the family conscience, we understand that when we talk about the conscience later on. People who have been dismissed because of sexual preferences or other not commonly accepted behavior in their time, in their family, in their morals, whatever it was. Some vanished in a war situation, never seen, never heard, never, or even not in a war situation, just vanished. Yeah. Some are excommunicated or dishonored. Also, a few generations ago, that was very common. That the family thought if they expel somebody from the family system, it doesn't belong anymore. But that's not true. The morphogenetic field makes sure these members are not forgotten because they do belong to the family system, regardless what they have done. It does not matter what they have done. They could be like Hitler, if like everybody likes this example for some reason, including me. Hitler has a family system and he belongs to this, you know? No way. And the same is Jesus, and the same is Buddha, and everybody has a family system and belongs to a family system. And he cannot not have it. No, it's impossible. And you don't need to own it to be a family member, and you can never lose this membership either. It's more than a lifetime membership. It's literally forever. The dead belong to the family. We work with the death all the time. We are actually don't mind if the people are dead or not. In the family constellation, only the soul energy of this person plays a role and is represented by another person or by a figurine or whatever you work with. Um, so we don't care about it. However, the client who comes to you is not familiar with family constellation, might has the impression that the dead people don't play a role, right? So you sometimes have to work through this expectation, make sure that they understand that that's not the case. So the dead people belong to the family system through their destiny or blood relationship or action. Yeah. We have to ask ourselves if this is the case, that the membership to a family system doesn't end with the death of the body, who or what is actually dying? Hmm. So that's a really good question. And you don't need to answer that. And I won't answer that neither. I just want you to realize that this is actually a good question. And you can contemplate on it. And if we have time today, it depends, probably not today because we had a longer introduction today. I would like to do a death exercise with you, but we see when it fits in. We don't do that now because we don't know whether we run out of time or not. Remind me by the end of part 1 if we have at least 15 minutes left, then we do the death exercise. Let me just time check. I think we do our break now before we are looking at adoptions, which is a new topic. So I have 9 p.m. now, and you're supposed to have
3 p.m.
3,
Yeah.
3 p.m. So 10 minutes, and I see you again. Please mute yourself and turn off the video off, and come back in 10 minutes. Okay?
All right. Thank you, Maya.
See ya. The recording. I was reading in the break the chat, and there were a couple of really interesting discussions and questions, and I would like to talk about that now. So interesting that you were commenting on the number 7. So there's is something going on with the 7, isn't it? Who of you knows numerology? The science of numbers, the energy of numbers, a little bit. Yeah, it's actually based on Pythagoras, the one who is responsible for lots of our math equations. And it is. I was very interested in it. I studied it for quite some time. It is fascinating. The numbers 1 to 9, they have their own energies, and the 7 is a magic number. It's a number with magic. It's also in occults they use the number 7 a lot. It's where everything is possible. That's the number 7. And yeah, so we have 7 generations of 7 years and the cycles. Yes, that's true. Every 7 years something changes in the body as well. Yeah. Then the other question was, let me just check what that was. Yeah. Do our ancestors soul recycle reborn back into the same family? That's a very good question, Abby. And yes, the answer is yes, they do. Where is she? Here. Oh my God. Yes, they do.
In 7 generations, and or is there like a formula?
Quicker, yeah. So there is a wonderful saying, and that's not from Bert Hellinger, but that's from another enlightened being, saying that we are all our own ancestors. Yes. And there's module 4 when we go really in depth into the cycle of life and the spiritual meaning of life and trying to attempt to answer questions. Where are we coming from? What are we doing here? And where are we heading? And who we are. And then the other question was, are adoptive parents an advantage giver if they're not considered your parents? So we are talking about adoptions now, and I will share the screen to that. And you will understand then why they are not an advantage giver, or I will explain it to you.
But Maya,
Yep.
may I ask a question?
Yes, sure.
How do pets fit into the family system, if they
I
do?
love this question. That is such a good question. So you're a pet owner.
Yes,
What do you have?
2 cats.
2 cats. Who else has pets? Hands up.
Was.
Talita, you have also the 2 cats.
Yes, they're criminals, but yes.
Cats are always criminals. Okay, I have 5 dogs and a cat.
Mhm.
So yes, pets can belong to the family system, but in a very strange way. I had my first representative was a dog in the last physical family constellation workshop I have had. That was the first time in all these years that a dog showed up. So if it wouldn't be for this family constellation, I would probably have said no. But it was amazing to see that a dog showed up. So yes, a dog can be part of the family system by destiny or by giving advantage or disadvantage or victim perpetrator situation. Yes, it is possible. In case of the dog, I can say yes.
So Maya,
Yeah.
just a quick. So say if our dog died, and then we got another puppy, is it possible that the soul of that new puppy is from our previous dog?
I would say it is definitely possible. Yeah,
So it's come back to the same family.
possible, yes. And they often do. I'm absolutely sure about that. Yeah. Mhm. Good. Okay, so we talk about adoptions. So there is this difference between bound by destiny and advantage and disadvantage giver. Advantage, so an adoptive parent gives an advantage to a child, but the child doesn't receive a disadvantage, right? So the dynamic advantage giver and receiver is correlating with each other. The one has an advantage on the costs of somebody else. Yeah. That is the advantage disadvantage relationship. The adoption parents, they hopefully don't impose a disadvantage on the children, with their giving an advantage. So they would be bound by destiny. Adoption parents not always are part of a family system. Just in special occasions when it will show up in a family constellation. Yeah. So I just clarify, when you are in a family constellation and somebody is putting up their father and their mother, it is always the sperm and egg situation. Even if this child has never knew his parents, there will never be the adoptive parents there. When they in a family constellation place representatives for mother and father, then might in the course of the family constellation there would be an issue with an adoptive father or an adoptive mother, and then they are represented as well, and they come in as bound by a destiny to this family. Yeah, but this is not how it starts, and the dynamic is most often, and the entanglements are always in this blood-related families. This is where the family system gives, so to speak, the entanglement over to the next generation. And it doesn't matter if they know them or not for the family system. Yeah. So when we talk about adoptions, we have to understand entanglements happening in the blood-related families foremost. Yeah, that's the rule. Then, when an adopted child or parent is bound by destiny, only when the adoption is the cause of an imbalance. Yeah, and I tell you now what is considered to be an imbalanced adoption, and that is when the actual adoption situation is becoming an issue in a family constellation because they are part of the family system. We have to understand adoption are not the same as caregivers. Adopting means the legal right of being a parent under dismissing the blood parent to be a parent. Yeah, that's an adoption. The other side is caregiving or fostering or whatnot. That's not adoption. That is not stepping into the legal position of a parent. Yeah. And only imbalances can only be caused when somebody else steps in the role of a parent, although it wouldn't be the right thing to do. So, if the adoption was selfish motivated, and if you're really honest, you will sometimes find that some adoptions, or maybe most, are really selfish motivated. Then the family soul is compensating for it. Yeah, because it causes an imbalance. And this could be the cause of a partner leaving, the own child is taken or dies, or childlessness is following, or something like that. The soul will compensate for it. Now, what is a selfish motivated adoption? I have one in my own family, in the family of my ex-husband. The sister, she had a second partner after her children were already teenagers and had a child with them. So the child was 15 years younger than the youngest of her other children. And so she knew when the child is 5 years old, they are all out of the house. And she doesn't want this child to grow up on their own without siblings. Yeah. So she adopted a child from Haiti. That was after the catastrophe in Haiti. And she wanted the child as a playmate for her own child. That was the only reason. Yeah. And that is selfish motivated, obviously, right? And of course, the partnership doesn't last. So she lost the partner shortly after the adoption. So that is just an example, and they are often when it is an imbalance adoption. Another case is so if you adopt a child, if a child is adopted although the parents are still alive, Bert Hellinger was very strict with that. He said the right thing to do, if you look at the orders of love, is despite the financial situations they are in, that's never counting, is to leave the right to be a parent with the actual parents. Yeah. So always adopt a child from parents who have passed away, and there are no close relatives neither who can look after the child. So there's actually nobody to fulfill the role as parents who were close related. So then it is totally okay to take over the responsibility as a parent. But when this is not the case, it would be more appropriate if to help a child to foster it or care for it and allow the child to be still you know, openly part of the family system where it comes from, you know. And that would be a very selfless service, you know, to the whole, to the child and to the family. So and they are everything in between, which you don't need to learn all of this. This will all show up in the family system. It's just that I want just to point you in the right direction here. While we're talking about the orders of love and Bert Hellinger's teaching and how he has observed in family constellation where imbalances are happening in this case of adoption. So remember, take that home. In a family constellation, you see the blood-related parents first, no matter what. So let's talk about belonging and family constellations. So in a family constellation, you only see the people who belong to the family system. That is the first order of love, and it is super important. Yeah. In a family constellation, you will not see anybody who doesn't belong to the family system. In this example, Yoda, of the dog, I was so surprised because I never considered a pet being part of the family system when it showed up. But it was obviously the situation was as such that there was an advantage disadvantage giving situation, and this is how the pet belonged to the family system. So I can quickly explain this case. A client came to me. She had psoriasis. Do you know what that is? Yeah, a very severe case of psoriasis for 20 years on the whole body. So she had this open skin everywhere on the body, and she was only wearing long sleeve shirts and long pants. And since 20 years, and it was and she did everything she could do, and nothing helped. And she came to me in a group session, workshop on a referral of a friend, but she didn't believe in it. She didn't know anything about family constellation. She never heard of it. She didn't believe in anything outside of, you know, classic medication, medicine, school medicine. But she said, oh well, couldn't you know, couldn't hurt. She had no hopes. She was very skeptical. Anyhow, we did this constellation, and what happened was 20 years ago she immigrated from Switzerland to New Zealand, and she had to leave her dog behind. She couldn't take him with, and in order to leave, she had to leave the dog behind, and the dog was not very well cared for and died when she, you know, then eventually. And her advantage was that she could emigrate without the dog, do what she wants. And his disadvantage was that he had his loving owners not to care for him anymore. Nobody cared for him anymore properly. Yeah. And what causes the psoriasis was obviously her underlying feeling of guilt, which she never thought of for 20 years. Not one moment she thought about the dog. Hmm? That was very interesting. By the way, this is half a year ago. She called me for 2 weeks ago. Her psoriasis is gone. So she was very happy about that, as you would know. Yeah, and that is also something that you take with you for today, which we will talk about longer. That is typical. Bert Hellinger is saying that it takes up to 6 months for a constellation to manifest in the body. Up to 6 months. And often with diseases, it is exactly 6 months. This is really interesting. And it was so in this case with the client. So she came to me. She had short sleeves, scars on her arms, but they were all intact. Skin was completely healed. Yeah. So that's why we love family constellation, because nothing else worked. Energy is like a stream flowing in one direction. This is a picture that I like to use to make understand why this healing takes place. Now, if you think of a river that flows from the source to the ocean, it only flows down, right? We know that. It cannot flow up. It cannot flow back. It only flows in one direction. And this is in a family system, the love of life, the love to life, or life itself is like that. It is a stream that flows in one direction, from one generation to the other. It does not flow back. It comes from the source and flows in the vast ocean of consciousness, if you will. And in between, there are the generations. And each parent lets the love flow through from their parents to their children. That's the order of love. And this picture, when you now think that there is a disruption of the order of love, it's like a rock, a big rock that is plonked into this river. And the love is kind of building up and cannot flow, stuck. Yeah. And every imbalance in the orders of love will cause this a big, boulder in the river that is piling up the water behind, doesn't let the love flow. And what we do with family constellation is we lift this boulder and put it aside where it belongs, to the shore. And then the love can flow again. The stream can flow again. And that's the healing process. Now, I've been asked, why is it that the family soul only remembers the traumatic experiences, right? Why not all the happy moments of a family? What's going on there? Now, the answer is the happy moments of a family is creation, is love, is life itself, is what nourishes the family system. It's what it is, what it exists of. There doesn't need to be any memory. These emotions are going straight into nourishment of the, if you will, body and soul of the family system. But the traumas, the disruptions of the orders, they are not nourishing and caring. They are the opposite. They need to be transformed one day into this nourishment. So they are held in the memory of the family system. So one of the descendants will pick up the stone and put it aside. So the family soul is nourished again. This is what we do in family constellation. So this rock in the stream we also call an entanglement. An entanglement is a term obviously translated from German, Verstrickung, that makes somebody from the current generation suffer for something that has been done in generations before, which causes this rock in the stream. Yeah. So that's called an entanglement. And then it's not the one who is entangled, the current generation, who actually picks up the rock. The one who is entangled just pointing at the rock and say to the person who put it there, take it away. This is why we go back to the generation where it is originated. That is very different to a lot of other healing modalities, including energy healing modalities, because they all work with the client. But we are not working with the client. The client is just the pointer. We are working with where it started, because everything is a repetition, a repeating pattern and pattern and pattern. And I really don't know any other modality who goes so far to the source to heal it there as family constellation. So we talked about love is the life force. which is not stored in the memory of the morphic field. And I have already mentioned the new versus the old family constellation. We are not in the new family constellation hopping through all generations and try to find out where the rock is. We are taking the client we have who points at the rock, and we go with the client to the rock and see from there, like we ask, who put it here? You know, who put it here? Hands up, and then they will show. This ancestor, they will show, and then we work with them. And often we don't know which generation it was. Was it the third or the fifth or the seventh generation? We don't know, and we don't need to know. This is a much more effective, quicker way to heal an entanglement than the old family constellation. And I mentioned it already, the virtual room is super efficient in doing that as well. And I like to call it the next family constellation. We talked about briefly how to constellate organizations with family constellation. That is very common in Germany and all the countries who are practicing family constellation since 40 years, since the beginning of Bert Hellinger, basically. And this training will also enable you. We will also look at family constellating organizations, which is called systemic constellation. But you can also call it family constellation, doesn't matter. The word family constellation is accurate because if you look at an organization, in the end, there will always be family members standing, representing parts of the organization. So now we enter a completely new topic. We have looked before at belonging, the first order of love, belonging, and the part of the first order of love is also conscience and destiny. And Bert Hellinger wrote a lot of books about it, and it was very crucial for him to understand conscience and family constellations because they are showing us the reason for certain dynamics. So there are three conscience we need to learn about and distinguish: the personal conscience, the collective conscience, and the conscience of the spirit mind, or the spiritual conscience. Then we look at destiny and common destiny as well, and we start with the personal conscience. So what is conscience and family constellation? We have to understand that action is guided by the conscience. All our actions are guided in one way or the other by a personal conscience. Harmful actions are often based on a good conscience. Why is that? Because we are conditioned in our conscience. Our personal conscience is a conditioning of the mind. So what the family think is right, we learn in the first 7 years when we live in this family is right. Even if the whole world thinks it's wrong. For us, it's right to do. That's what we learn. And this is why we have a good conscience in doing it. The conscience only works in a system. Outside of the system, it doesn't work. So when this family thinks, for example, it is right to take what doesn't belong to you. Let's say it's a family system of burglars, yeah? And a child is growing up in this system, it learns that it is right to take what doesn't belong because they need it, they make money out of it. That's how they make money. But it works only in this family. If this child is taken out of this family in another family, let's say as a foster child, and this is a family which is very honest, yeah, with this good conscience of stealing things, it wouldn't go far. It doesn't work there. So outside this system, the conscience reveals its true face. And this is why we need to look at it outside of the system. The conscience is a trivial animal nature, and it's not a good guide, right? So if you hear people talking by guided by conscience, or sometimes they say, guide, I felt like it. This is not normally a good guide because it's due to the conditioning of a system. And when you're stepping out of the system, it ceases to be a guide. It only guides within the system. Hmm? So connected with the emotion of guilt and atonement, many bad things have been done with the feeling of innocence. Hmm? And in history, we see this everywhere. And then, of course, there's this classic example when there is a war and a soldier kills another person that is okay. Yeah, it's with a feeling of uh, being okay, a feeling of innocence, right? But if the war would not have been like if the end of the war would have been declared an hour before, it would have been murder, the same act, and would have been like guided by a feeling of guilt. So this is what the personal conscience reveals. Like guilt and innocence are not equal to good or bad in one's actions. Right? Um, that's another paradigm to consider. Guilt and innocence are not equal to good or bad in one's action. Because the feeling of guilt or innocence comes from the personal conscience, from the conditioning in the family, from the system. The personal conscience is felt more than objectively detectable. So when somebody who is still very close to the family and has not really left the system, not find its own way, so to speak, they often make decisions by feeling, it feels right, it feels right, it feels right or wrong. But that's not objective. That's just the personal conscience who says that. We perceive our own actions as either good or bad, depending on our personal conscience. That's all. There is no objective good or bad other than the orders of love. They can either be obeyed or not. Right? But this is not a good or bad in the actions. This secures this feeling of good or bad secures the belonging to the family, because the family decides what's good and bad. And as you see later, we have an innate need to belong. Yeah, that's a very deep-rooted innate need. We are conditioned within the first 7 years of our lives in theta state. So for you who knows this already, this is also something we observe in family systems. So when a child is in a kind of a hypnosis state between 2 and 6 years old, or in alpha state between 5 and 8, there is when the conditioning is happening, and there is where this feeling of innocence or guilt comes from. What we do in a system and what we not do in a system. And it becomes automated behavior for survival. And if one never grows out of that, then that's what it gets for the rest of the life. It defines the boundaries of our behavior and creates judgment of the behaviors of others, of course. Right? That's what happens. Systems fighting each other to the blood. Religious systems, for example, or political systems, or families, neighbors, you know. Therefore, to go beyond these boundaries, one has to experience a bad conscience and a rebellion against the family. Now, honestly, hands up, who of you has ever felt be a rebel in the family? I expect you all to put your hands up because otherwise you wouldn't be here, you know. Only the rebels do the work. But it might be quite subtle, might be more or less, but might subtle, but you are all rebels because you want to step out. You want to step out of the confinements of your often a feeling of guilt arises rather than of innocence. So you think, whoa, why is that? But this is what the conditioning brings with it. So the personal conscience and relationships. So there are three basic needs in family members. The first is the need of bond, and the need of bond comes or is fulfilled through attachment. So when we think of a romantic relationship, and we are always talking about love, right? I love you, you love me, you know, you have to love me, you can't leave me, you love me. We are talking about attachment because we have the need for bond. You know, we want to bond with the person. That's an attachment. We have a need for order. And how do we fulfill the need for order? We abide the order, whatever order is set, the rules that are set, the rules of the game, right? And then we have a need for balance. And we balance through compensation. And there's beautiful examples that Bert Hellinger gives for balancing uh, romantic relationships, which we go through when we come to it. And it works very well. So you can, with the amount of compensation, you can create more positive or more negative balance in the relationship. So I repeat, we have three needs in relationships. We have the need for bond, the need for order, and the need for balance. And the three is another magic number. And if you know a little bit of numerology, or if you're interested, you read about it. The three is also called the divine number, the creator's number. And it's also the the family number, because 1 and 2 makes 3. You know, you need 2 to make 3. If you know what I mean. So 3 is a creative number. And 3 is, interestingly, a number you find everywhere in family constellation. We have 3 basic dynamics. We have 3 orders of love. We have 3 needs. We have the 3 is everywhere. The 3 and the 7. So and it's also easy because we all can count to 3, right? So it's easy for us to learn to facilitate family constellation, because we always just need to count to 3, sometimes to 7, right? So these 3 basic needs, they're often in conflict with each other because they follow different aspects of the personal conscience. So, for example, if you're in need of bond with a family member, you feel guilt if you're excluded and innocent if you're included in the family, even if the family does something bad. Or if you are in need for compensation, you feel receiving as guilt and giving as innocent. And a lot of people feel that, right? They rather give and give and give and don't want to receive. Do you know people like this? They can be quite annoying, can they? Yes. And that's why, because they don't know how to compensate. And if you are in a relationship, and I'm not talking about romantic relationship, it could be at the workplace or somewhere, with a person like this who feels that way, then you're like stop. Or if you're in need of order, you'll feel fear of punishment as guilt and loyalty as innocence. So you want to be loyal, right? To obey, even if the whatever you need to be loyal to is a bad thing, if you will. That's natural. This is what the personal conscience, um, that's an aspect of the personal conscience. So we have also the collective conscience, follows a little bit of different rules. And it exists in addition. So it's not that you first have a personal conscience and then you get out of the personal conscience into a collective consciousness. It's rather that both exist. So you have a personal conscience, which is basically conditioning, and then you have a collective conscience on top. Yeah, and it functions to enforce the orders of love in the family system. It aims to integrate the excluded and forgotten family members by choosing another family member, that's our client or ourselves, with whom we work, to represent this person, therefore creating an entanglement between these family members. That is what the collective conscience does. The entanglement is not felt as good and bad. That's different to the personal conscience. Rather, is imitation of the a represented family member, having the same disease, an accident, job, and same destiny, often looking similar even. Often they have the same name as a family member in 2 or 3 generations before with whom they are entangled with. And of course, this is very subconsciously in the family system. Nobody thinks about it. They don't give this person the name Peter because his great grandfather was Peter. And they think that it's just, it's just, and coming back to reincarnation, maybe it's the same person, even the same soul, possible, right? So we are our own healers as well. We are not only our own sisters, we are also our own healers. The representative is feeling a sensation of being twisted and torn all the time, cannot focus on his own life. It's a feeling of being controlled remotely, often, that's what they say. Not fulfilled or happy, driven against his or her own will. It's kind of living 2 lives. That is when the collective conscience puts them into service and entangle them with one of the family members. If the excluded family member is seen in a family constellation, this entanglement can be lifted, and the client feels an enormous relief and freedom to live his and her own life because the love can flow undisturbed again. The boulder has been taken out of the river and put aside, so the stream of love can flow again. Coming back to the example with the dog, my client, she has completely forgotten about the dog. When she moved to, never talked about it, nobody knew about it. Was completely excluded from her life until the family constellation, a representative showed up. The entanglement is often repetitive and also seen in previous generations. That is so interesting. You think, I see these entanglements. Let's say the entanglement, I follow you, which we talk about later, in the generation of the grandparents. And you think, I can work there, I can heal that. Be aware that this is might a repetition from the same pattern in the 5th generation. So in order to heal it properly, you need to go to the 5th generation. And of course, you learn in the course of the training how to see that and how to do that. So never jump onto conclusions. Always be guided by the morphic field. They will give you the information needed. It is the destiny of a family member to be entangled, often chosen before birth. That's what you see, often chosen. And especially when children come, when children have a disease, right? Cancer, fatal disease even, a nasty allergy would make this impossible to feed this child even, right? Obviously, this child has done nothing to deserve that, right? So it must come from another generation. The deep unconscious love of a family member to the excluded one makes way for the healing movement of the soul. It is always love. And the person who wants to look at whatever burden they carry through the method of family constellation is the one who has the most love in the family, because it takes guts to do that. And they do that out of love. They have the entanglement out of love and they want to heal it. So that's what you see. This is also why this work is so beautiful, because you're surrounded with all these beautiful souls. They have so much love, which they don't know about. The collective conscience has boundaries. It includes only family members of the first orders of love and excludes all others. This is why we can only work within the family members that belong. Otherwise, it has no effect. The collective conscience rules over the personal conscience, so they both exist parallel, but if there's a conflict, the collective consciousness would rule over it. Meaning, if the personal conscience would oppose the feeling of guilt onto the client, and the collective conscience says, you are the one to solve this, the client will come with this feeling of guilt, nevertheless, to a family constellation, which another person who has a feeling of guilt would never do, because they don't want to look at it. Because it hurts. It's an emotion that nobody wants to look at. The personal conscience tells a family member to do something because it feels right. That's another example. For example, making a child want to atone for the sins of a parent or something like that. Because that is what children do in this family. It's conditioned. That's a personal conscience. But the collective conscience is not tolerating this behavior as a violation of the second orders of love, who comes first, which we talk next week about, and overrules the personal conscience by creating an entanglement that eventually will lead to a lift of the burden once healing can take place. Now we have the conscience of the spirit, or the spiritual conscience, which is also existing on top of others. And this is the terminology that Bertellinger uses in German. So it's a direct translation of it. The spirit conscience rules above the personal and collective conscience, and it unites both and also dissolves their boundaries. This conscience has no boundaries other than the collective conscience. It has no judgment, no good or bad. It doesn't exclude anybody or anything. Right? Its role is to unite whatever needs unity, let the love flow wherever it was interrupted is created, and it's love itself. You can call it love. One can experience this conscience in the same way as a personal conscience, with a feeling of belonging, content, guidance, and harmony. And that is the state of the facilitator. So the facilitator, we learn that a little bit later with the orders of helping, belongs also to the family system in a very specific way. Yeah? But it does not belong to the family system. It has not the personal nor the collective conscience of the family system. It's only guided by the spirit mind. It has only the conscience of the spirit. And that makes the facilitator possible to work with the family system in the right order. No feelings of guilt or innocence are present. So as I just said, the facilitator has no such feelings. Right? So you are not, that is very important to understand. Family constellation facilitating is not an intuitive thing. You're not intuitive. No, you learn the tools and you apply them with the right set of mind. You don't need to be intuitive, and it's actually counterproductive, because what you take over is probably the emotions of the personal conscience. And why would that help? Why? Because it's just leading astray. So that is a little bit, galloping ahead of what we come to in the second and third module. But just to let you know, that is the right place of the facilitator. It's going with the conscience of the spirit mind. How do you know? How do you know that you are connected to that? Is because you feel this peace, tranquility, like in a meditation, more or less. Guidance is felt. You are in the place where no problems are to be solved. So you're looking at the client, you're looking at the family constellation, and you don't see a problem, right? You just see a dynamic. You see what is. That's not a problem. It is just what it is, you know. And you don't feel for anybody in there. No, that's not what you do. The conscience of the spirit is accepting everything as it is. There is nothing shocking. Murder is not shocking. Abortion, it's not shocking. Of course, the representatives could be very emotional in a family constellation, and that's good, but not the facilitator. Definitely not. So you don't even have the wish to change when you're going with the conscience of the spirit. You're observing, you're looking at what is, you're applying words, gestures, everything, just to help the love flow. Think of the stream of love, the stream that needs to flow. That's all. The stream needs to flow. That's all. That's all in the back of your head. And you have the conviction. You are certain. You have the certainty that the orders of love will find their way to heal the family. How to access this conscience? You allow the personal and collective conscious to dissolve into it. And you allow that for the family members you see in the family constellation. You do that for them, right? So they can also enter the spiritual conscience with you. That's an invitation. That is the way and the destiny of the new family constellation. That's a quote from Bertelling. Obviously, I've translated. So now we are thinking about destiny, common destiny, and free choice. So destiny is spelled as pre-existing, out of one's control, a strong urge to achieve something, can be towards good or bad, both ways. It is supported by a good personal conscience and or the collective conscience. This is how destiny is felt when a person thinks about it and needs to describe it. A common destiny is the destiny of the whole family system. This exists as well. The family system itself has a destiny. And again, also this destiny is dissolved completely in the conscience of the spirit, right? So the role of the facilitator is to provide this realm, to provide this space where it can dissolve. So what about free choice if everything is destiny? That's now the question that comes up, obviously. Any ideas? Do we have free choice? Just raise your hand, just freely say what you think. Go ahead. Shout it out. Unmute.
Yeah.
Did you say something, Abby?
Oh, I thought yes.
You said
Are we
yes.
supposed to say yes? Yes.
So you say yes, we have free choice.
Yes.
Okay. Who agrees?
I agree as well.
Who disagrees?
I agree.
So we have no destiny. There is no destiny. We always have free choice.
Both.
I feel we have the free choice not to repeat the same pattern again.
Yes. Yes.
I feel it's like a river, like you can see your destination, but you have two ways to get to the destination. So it's your choice to take this way or that way. So that
So the
also
way is
affects your
the free choice. The destiny is the destination is destiny. Well,
or
that's a
the
nice word. Huh?
experience. Yeah, in a way.
Maybe destination comes from destiny.
Could be.
Hmm. Interesting.
Maybe you don't have a say in who you're gonna be entangled with
Mm-hmm.
because you make that pre-birth, like a contract before you come
Yes.
to Earth.
Yes.
But you always have a choice how to, like, it's a pre-existing contract, but you always have a choice to how you want to end it or honor the contract or something like that, and that's like karma.
Nice. I like that. I like that. So yes, it's a clear yes and no answer, right? It's it's both. Yes. I would agree to that. Yeah. It's practically everything is destined to a certain point until you understand the destiny, and then you have a free choice, right? But before you don't see it, before you don't understand it, before you don't notice it, before you have, then you have no free choice. You just follow the destiny. It's almost like having, like a picture comes to my mind as having kind of layers, the lifelines that are horizontal, where you can jump. So that's a decision. You can leave one and go to the other with another destiny, but you need to know where you are in order to make the decision.
I have this example, like, a person that is disabled, doesn't have hands or legs, but one can make something out of himself, like the very famous person, empowerment speaker, and then the other one begs, so they both have that destiny laid out, but their choices affect how their
Yeah.
life experience becomes.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Very good. Yeah, very interesting discussion. So, is there anything in the chat room I have to catch up with, because I don't see it for some reason when I share my slides? Where's the chat room? Hang on. Yeah, here we go.
Abby has a question.
Yes.
Yes, I have a question. Does that mean we cannot facilitate for our own blood family members, or let's say if we have soul family members, each other, even in this group, that we have, emotional attachment to, right? Is that not
Yeah, you
encouraged to
have, but
facilitate?
when you're facilitating, you are not present.
So you have to clear that attachment first, and then you can facilitate with your family.
Yeah, because you are not facilitating. You, the person who has attachments, is not facilitating. Because when you are facilitating the true meaning of the word, you are a conduit for the information of the morphic field, and you wouldn't have these emotions. They wouldn't be part that. So that's actually the measurement of your skill set to facilitate, is how you can leave this, I don't want to say body because it's not an out of body
That
experience.
purity, right? Of
Yeah.
channeling. Is
Yeah.
that like going to be taught? I mean, we know how to like sort of let go of our emotions
Yeah,
and
that's
detach and
perfect.
stuff, but is that part of the process as well?
Absolutely, yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
I have another question. What is a morphic field? Did we cover that? Because I didn't see.
We will. That's a very important
okay.
part of the training, because we are working with the morphogenetic field, and we will cover that in next module, module 2. Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Maya, I have
Yes,
a question for you though.
please.
I remember like the same being a family constellation facilitator, because Abby earlier on mentions about purity, means that intention you have to have a like a do you have to have like a constant ego check as a facilitator, because it can goes very awry with people who left with their ego unchecked. Because I've heard about like a horrible story about facilitator who, you know, sometimes the student will ask you like they I don't know, like giving advice or just the mentoring part.
Yeah.
And you know, like in this facilitator with the ego unchecked, and then like it create that imbalances where the student like kind of hang themselves, like literally like commit suicide because after attending a family constellation. So I was like, wow, the role as a family constellator facilitator is very important. And I think we have to constantly check whether we are imbalances in our ego. It will it affect as much as, yes, we are a conduit and a vessel when we, you know, when we are facilitating, but how much of a role that, you know, if we have our imbalances or ego unchecked, can that interfere with your facilitating, Maya? I'd like to know more about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I would say we have constantly to do the ego check, whatever we do, in any life circumstances. When you are not in check of your ego, and I don't mean in check as controlling it, I mean by means of dissolving it, you know, you wouldn't like this work, because this work is not rewarding. Nobody, if somebody says to you, well done, and you feel great with it, then you didn't do a good work, simply. So you never, you know, it's not rewarding, this work. It's a humble work. It's super humble, you know. If it talks to your ego, then it's not the work. Hmm? And I do agree, a lot of people are out there, they're doing the weirdest things, and some they call even family constellation, with ego driven. But you can trust the field. It will send the right persons to the right facilitators. They all deserve that. You don't need to worry about them. And if somebody commits suicide after family constellation, then that was his destiny. You don't need to worry about. If you are facilitating from the right mindset, you are not worried about anything. It's not necessary, because you just follow the information from the morphic field. You apply that in a skilled way. You know, you use your skills. You learn like a plumber uses toolbox, right? And if you do that, and if you follow that, nothing can go wrong. So you need the toolbox and the right mindset, and that's it. And then off you go. Hmm?
Thank you.
So let's see, check. Suicide can be triggered by anything. I heard a story of this person who seemed signs of strength, but afterwards removed. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely anything. Absolutely. And suicidal person, they, um, you know, there's a lot to say. They can be entangled. That's often a dynamic in the family system. I follow you. Um, it is the opposite of love of light, obvious. So there's a lot to say about suicide, but be assured nobody is really, nobody can really make somebody, you know, to commit suicide. Other in a crime movie on Netflix where an agent is, you know, tortured until he commits suicide. That, you know, that's not what is remotely concerned with what we do. I know Bert Hellinger had also this years ago, when he started this work. There was also somebody who committed suicide after he, not directly, but you know, after he went to a family constellation, and that was a time when family constellation was uncommon. There was a lot in the news, and not in the big news, but in the local news, about it. And um, You know, he never took it personal. He never took it. He never felt even the need to reply to that. And that's another thing. So in the right mindset and with the toolkit, and you do the work, and then you will have clients that are disappointed. No, the one client heals half a year later, and the other client never feels a thing change. That's just what it is. That doesn't mean that doesn't work. It just doesn't meet the expectations. So that's an interesting observation. People who come with no expectations because they gave up whatever they had, they heal very well in a family constellation. People who come with great expectation, know exactly what they want from you to deliver, they will be disappointed. And you have to live with that too, because that's just what happens. And that doesn't mean that the people who come with this great expectation need to be dismissed, because they will get something out of it. Guaranteed, because family constellation always works when it is a family constellation and not something else. It always works. It cannot not work. Just the expectations cannot be met. That's possible. And this is why I often explain when people are new to family constellation how that works, like with an onion. The burdens you carry, the issues you have, they are like skins on an onion, and you come to a family constellation and the first onion will be peeled, the first skin will be peeled away. It might not the onion that you saw, you might were thinking of something else, yeah, but this onion, the first peel will peel off, and it's the biggest one if you think of an onion. And a lot of people feel this instinct, this immediate relief and freedom after the first family constellation, because the biggest burden, whatever it was, they might not have any clue what it was, has been taken, has been relieved of. If they had no expectations, at the best, that's best. And then, but then there's the next one, and the next one, and the next one. So it doesn't stop there with one constellation. It's a way. And the people who come with great expectation, and the first layer is taken off, but they don't see it because they haven't expected that, they expected something completely different, and they never come back. They probably don't get to get any other skins peeled off, but the first one is gone. So for the family system, it's one step in the right direction. So it cannot fail. Not really. Okay. Yes. More
Yeah.
questions?
Yes. Just one last question. Just now you mentioned earlier that something, if you feel good about it, then you're not doing. That means you're not doing it right.
That's simplified, but yes, go ahead.
Okay, so I was just wondering, because as a facilitator, when we do this, like you kind of, how I cannot help but feel like you will feel good about it, because it's sort of like you help them solve a puzzle, or you help solve a puzzle, or it feels like it's like a jigsaw puzzle that when it fits, you feel that satisfaction, or you feel that 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 feeling of you've done it, you did it. How do you not feel that way though?
You will see in 10 years from here. It's a different feeling. It's a feeling of love, unconditional love towards the people you work with, rather than this good feeling good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I have a question.
Sure.
So family constellation is to help with entanglements and trauma, right? Are we like this connection that we have, all of us now learning about this? Is this also a kind of a way constellation, or what
like
do we
our
call
training group here?
Yes, like this. Like, is this like a I know it's not the healing one, but I'm sure we'll be going through many things. Is there a description for soul family or people that are brought together by fate, you know, but do you know what I'm trying to say? I'm just
Absolutely. So
wondering.
first of all, I'm absolutely sure that none of us is here by coincidence. That's for sure. Meant to be, and the odds were not really great that this is actually gonna happen. So definitely a destiny somehow. And yes, in a training session, healing is taking place because. You can also hear with insights and shift of energy, and you can bounce off energies from somebody else that lifts you up. um, uh, there's a lot going on in a group. We call that group dynamic, and on a soul level as well. So yes, definitely. So the participation alone is healing. And also in the workshop, when you are only observing, you're even representing. Look, Bert Hellinger had 300 people, 300, and he was only working with 20 representing, right? And there were 280 people in the room who all felt the healing taking place just by being there. So that is part of the morphogenetic field. You're all part of it when you are participating. Hmm? And that's it all yields in something, definitely. So it's definitely not it's not like watching Netflix. It's not a waste of time. Okay, let's see what comes up here. And what's our time check? Yep. Yeah, we do have 10 more minutes, do we? So let's look at guilt quickly. I like your comments, Yoda. Guilt is not objective. It is felt rather than detectable as well. Guilt depends on the conscience. Let me just get the chat out. Close this now. So it depends on the conscience. It's related to it's a feeling. It's the emotion that comes with a certain aspect of the conscience. The good news is, objectively, there is no guilt. Guilt is a mind construct. Yeah, it's impossible, because think of destiny. If it's a destiny to meet somebody else and you're destined to kill this person, how can you be guilty? No, it's a moral aspect. Of course, you have to take, responsibility and everything else, obviously. That's another thing, yeah. But guilt, really? So, it's something food for thought. Uh, um, Divine intervention is another term I want to throw in here. Just think about it. If you think about guilt, yeah, what is with divine intervention? Guilt is an emotion program. That's the important for family constellation. Guilt is an emotion program before year 7 due to the collective conscience, right? So when you develop your personal conscience based on the collective conscience, that's where guilt comes from. Guilt is rarely developed as an adult. If you do things that are not conditioned, that you don't feel guilt for, then you don't feel guilty. You do it. You know people who do things never feel guilty for it, which you think, oh my gosh, I would feel so guilty if I do that, but they don't. No, because you had this program from your family, but they didn't. Hmm? The emotion of guilt is a source of suffering. Hmm? Just bear that in mind. Let's talk about death and karma. Interesting topic. Um, so first of all, fear and death. Every emotion that is negative can be traced back to a fear of dying. And that's an exercise I would like to leave you with, to think about a negative emotion. For example, anxiety, or the fear of falling, or think of something, yeah? Even anger or something like a negative feeling, and what is it really what do you really fear when you feel this feeling? What are you really fearing? And even if you feel socially outcasted, this is also the fear of dying, because in former times when you were a social outcast, you died. You could not survive without society. Yeah. So everything, if you really think it through, and I don't want you to believe me anything anyhow, I would like you to experience everything, yeah, for yourself, is a fear of dying. So when we understand there is no death, fear has no grip. And that's part of the personal development, and that is what makes you a good facilitator, because you don't fear anything. Yeah. And when you don't fear blame or shame or making mistakes or anything like this, yeah, then you are open to the field to channel whatever needs to be said or done. So we want, and then also there is karma, right? So I'm actually, I've never been to Indonesia, I have to admit, although I always wanted at least to go to Bali. But then COVID came, and so what is the predominant religion in Indonesia? And what are you, is anybody of you religious? And if so, what kind? I would be interested in that. Would you like to share that?
Uh,
Yeah, sure. Oh, okay. Sorry, Yoda, go on.
no, it's okay. You can go ahead, Ivy. You can go ahead.
Well, I'm Muslim
Mhm.
by birth, and going through the golden space make me more of a universalist. I still have, I believe, part of my DNA being a Muslim it still affects me a lot,
Mhm.
but it's more free now. I see
Mhm.
it in a very detached way. Thank you to my whole experience with the golden space and my family here.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing. Anybody
Well,
else?
I
Yeah.
just wanted to explain that the dominant religion in Indonesia is Islam,
Yeah.
and but we have other religions as well, like Christianity, Catholicism,
Mhm.
and Presbyterian, Hinduism, Buddhism. Like Bali is predominantly Hindu,
Mhm.
and yeah, I was born Muslim as well, but I have grown to be a universal agnostic. I myself have practiced three religions growing up
Mhm.
because I have a mixed religion family.
So
So
Muslim, and what else?
Muslim, Christian, and Catholic. So I've done all the prayers. I've done the pilgrimage for Muslim. I've
Oh,
been baptized Catholic. I've been baptized Christian. I've also been taught like uh, Episcopalian and all that. But I love and respect all religions.
yeah, that's wonderful. And now you call it only universal, meaning that you are embracing um, all religions without being religious. Is that what?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
wonderful, wonderful. So if you see family constellations in your area, you would expect some Muslimic um, condition, like
Yeah.
belief systems and
Yeah.
conditionings and conscience and everything, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Interesting.
Islamic and Christian, because Christian is the second
And
largest.
Christian, okay.
Yeah.
Mhm. I'm not familiar with the Islamic, I have to say, so I'm very curious to see our first family constellations. If that has any impact. Maybe not at all. We see. Um, so why would I asking that? Probably because karma also a term in the Muslimic religion? Is this common
As cause and effect, yes,
as cause
in
and yeah,
terms of cause
obviously,
and effect, but not in terms of rebirth, because
okay.
for the monotheistic religion, they believe in a single life plane. However, deeper in Sufi belief, which is part of it, they understand that the soul realm can allow you to experience many lives.
Yeah.
So it's
Well,
quite
I'm
different.
more versed with the Sufis than with the Muslimic, because this is the mother yeah, no, like a more universal philosophy. Like the same in Hindu. Hindu is a religion, but there's yoga, there's, there's Veda, there's a broader picture. Um, yeah, interesting. So karma, yeah, karma is translated from Sanskrit as cause and effect, and cause effect is uh, um, bridging lifetimes. So it is not good and bad. It is not a punishment. That would be very Christian, by the way, a punishment. It is, uh, you did something in a lifetime, and it's not going away because you leave your body. It's not going away because, you die. It's still there. And then you are granted a new lifetime to balance it out, so to speak. Yeah. So that's the cause and effect that spans through lifetimes, if you think of karma, because death is not so important as we think. So interestingly, we are fearing death, and this is kind of restricting our whole life in so many ways. Just to realize that death doesn't. And the great thing is about doing family constellation, you see it, you experience it. There is no way in diving deep into the world of family constellation without realizing that nobody is dead there. They are very real, right? They are acting their emotions and their belief systems that they represent there very accurately. And you have all experienced that when you have been in family constellation, how the representatives of somebody who has long passed has been recognized by the client as, oh yeah, he did exactly that. He always said that, or he always had the same gesture. So yeah, that's not going away. That's staying. That's staying. Only really the physical body is leaving. The rest is staying, and we will talk about that in module 4. So now we do the exercise. Although, are you still with me? Are you still good for 10 more minutes?
I
Yeah?
am.
Yes? Everybody? Thumbs up?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's do, before we leave, the exercise. So, and I'm gonna, hang on, am I through with my, yeah, before we do that, because we might leave there, I want you to take note of your preparation. Next week, we gather at the same time. Oh, and Yoda is not there. Maybe universe will realign again and make you appear. We see. So next week, please have a photo of your mother and your father. Yeah.
Is
Okay.
this a physical or a digital photo? Like on the
It
computer
looks,
screen?
yeah, you can share it in the chat room if it's digital. Otherwise, you bring either or whatever you have. It would be
Most
preferable.
recent?
No, that doesn't matter. So that doesn't matter. It would be preferable if you have a single, like not a couple photo. If you have mother and father as a, just singular, not together. But if you'd only have a couple photo, that's fine too. Okay, so that's for that. Then I stop sharing this slide. And then we do our exercise. So I would like you to sit upright, relax your shoulders, put your feet on the ground or your knees when you're sitting cross-legged, and feel grounded. And then we start to do a couple of deep breaths. Inhaling through the nose into the belly. Belly comes out. And then exhale, gently draw in the belly. Trace your breath until it comes out of your nostril. And when you're empty, inhale again, filling up the belly like a balloon, and breathe deep into your bottom of the spine. And then exhale again. And with every breath, you relax further the jaw, the shoulders, the eyes are relaxed. And with every breath, you sink deeper into your inner space of peace and tranquility, your happy space, where there are no thoughts, no problems, no worries, not even excitement. A happy space where you are always in the now, in this very moment, where everything is perfect as it is. Nothing needs to be added to make it more perfect or taken away. And in this happy space, you see yourself happy, lying down, closing eyes. And you see and you feel while you are lying down in your happy space, connected with the moment. You realize that you have, that the left leg is gone, just like magic. Nothing has hurt you, just vanished in the cloud. You just take notice. There's nothing to worry about. You're in your happy space. Then you feel that also the right leg is not there anymore, just vanished. And then the left arm and the left and the right arm. And you notice you're still there. Everything is as every nothing has changed. Everything is as it was before. You can observe, you can feel, you have emotions, you have awareness, and you have this sense of being. And while you're thinking about that, you realize that your head is gone. And although it seems odd and you wonder about that, you are very aware about it. And you can wonder about it. And before you know it, your upper body is gone. And you think about it. And you feel still happy and free. And you take notice that even as the last part of the body has disappeared in this cloud, you are still there. You can experience it, you can observe it, you can have thoughts about it, and it doesn't hurt you. You don't even miss anything. And with this new, interesting experience of yourself being without a body in your happy space, you come back into your room where you feel your body very real, sitting on the chair with all arms and legs intact. And of course, the precious head on top. Take a deep inhale and an open mouth exhale. And when you're ready, and when you're fully back in your reality, then you can open your eyes. You want to unmute yourself and share what you have experienced in this exercise? How was it?
Well, I feel very just a sense of beingness
Mm-hmm.
and just being in the flow of life itself. And yeah, it's just that state of stillness, really,
Mm-hmm.
being that non-judgmental or unconditional observer.
Very good.
It's very nice. Thank you.
Oh, very welcome. Anybody else wants to share? Anybody was scared to see the body parts missing? Any kind of fear coming up? No, not really.
Robin, you
Interesting, eh?
should share.
Huh?
What? I went to my happy place, by the lake, by
Yeah,
the
that's why you were smiling. That's why I
tree
want
of
you to share.
life, with my happy self, just like Kung Fu Panda. Thank you.
That's always good. Yes, good. So that would conclude the first part of our training module. The next gathering we have is on Sunday, 7 a.m. your time. I have sent you all the link to sign up for the workshop. I encourage you to do that now that you book. If you experience any difficulties, you can send me an email. Please don't sign up an hour before the workshop because this is not a good time to have difficulties. Yeah, and also as a like in general for our gatherings, if you can't make it to an event, please send me an email as possible 24 hours before, so we are not waiting for you, so I know what's coming up. Yeah, so that would be very nice if I could know if you can't come to a training module or a workshop or a group gathering or whatnot, that we know we can go ahead when you're not there. Okay. Is there anything else on my list? And then I also would like to remind you, if you have you all been on my website and looked at the training modules, and have you informed yourself what I'm doing, or were you just following Yoda, whatever he decides? Honestly.
He downloaded and shared to us. He says he's really good organizer.
Yeah. Okay, so go on my website, familyconstellationvirtual.com, and sign up to the newsletter, because there are blog posts that I'm posting only there for the subscribers of the newsletter, that are all having to do with family constellation and some experience family constellation, some food for thoughts. For the training, I think that's quite valuable. And also there are the dates for the workshops, so no excuses. To miss it. And then when you go on the website and click workshops, then all the dates of the workshops come. I think there are 6 dates published. You can write them all right now into your diary so you don't forget it. And they are all already displayed in your time zone. So don't think about like, ooh, what time is it for me? It is your time. So, however, the links I send you outside of the website are not in your time zone. So they will show Wellington, like New Zealand time zone, but I will always add what time zone it is in the email, right? But everything on the website is already in your time zone. Yeah, clear?
So
Maya, I
Maya,
have a
for the next class, will you be sending another email, or do we use the same link all the time?
The same.
So good question. I found out a way that you can use this Zoom link for the modules for the whole month. So every time we meet on Wednesdays, it's the same link. until the end of March. And then I send you a new link for April. And in April, you can all April use the same link. But that is only for our group gatherings. No, everything outside of our group gatherings, you are getting the Zoom link automatically when you book with your coupon codes the event on the website. Okay.
Maya, just a quick question. I was just checking my email and looking for, because you sent the email with the training link, and I can't find the the coupon for the workshop.
You
Or is
can't
that
find the
separate?
coupon. Okay, Joy. Who else? Robin.
I checked both emails. Yeah, I noticed you misspelled my Golden Space email. It's without an E. It's missing an E. That's why it's bounced back.
But now I have your
Yeah.
Gmail
I
anyhow.
know. It's okay. Just use my Gmail.
So
Thank
now
you.
it's better.
Yes. I thought it was our
Sorry for
server
that.
because we had to fix our server, right? So, okay.
Okay. So, but why has Joy then not the? That's interesting because Joy has another email.
Yeah, she uses Robin and Joy.
Yeah,
I use
yeah,
Robin
exactly,
Munjali.
exactly. But you both have not received the coupon code.
No, I just searched it just now. It's not.
But everybody
That's
else,
odd.
right? Everybody else, just to be
I mean,
sure.
in that email, like you said, workshop link here, right? That's the only email we received. Is that correct? Because I've only got that one email from
Coupon
you.
code. No, I have sent you several emails.
Yeah,
At
so
least
the
two.
coupon code is a separate email.
Okay.
And the title of that email is TGI-coupon codes dash please keep.
Thank you, Yoda. He is so good organized. So check your emails because I can't see that if you receive one email, then you receive the other as well. It shouldn't go to spam. To avoid things going to spam, of course, put this contact@familyconstellationvisual.com in your address book, and then it won't go to spam. I will use the Gmail from you now on because on YouTube, when I share the video recordings for private viewing, we can only use Gmails because Google. But that's okay. So if you have checked your emails and you have not found the email TGI coupon code, please keep, then email me, please. Yeah? Okay? Then I will resend it. And that's the one you need for Sunday. And then your same link for today, because you're all here, you all have it, will be next Wednesday.
I just rechecked my email and there's only, I don't know why, I only received one email from you, which is this one, the training, the start, the start of training.
Yeah, I made a note. I will send you tomorrow. I will send you the coupon code again and also to Robin. And if anybody else from you can't find it, please send me an email. Okay, so it was lovely to finally meet you all and started on our journey together. And I'm really looking forward to see you all on Sunday and do the actual work with you.
Thank you, Maya. And we also are looking forward in receiving your reading list, your recommended reading list, which you haven't sent. Yeah.
Yes, and there was something else, the reading list, and I said two things. I have to send that down. The list of books. And the worksheet. List of books and the worksheet. Yeah. All on the way. Okay. See you on Sunday.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maya. Thank you, Maya.
Bye.
Thank you, Maya.
Bye.